Hello, great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Michal. I'm the CEO and founder of Elympics, and today we'll talk a little about blockchain games. So, first of all, we're all here because we love crypto. We believe in the ideas that it brings to the table, the ideas of decentralization, the ideas of trustlessness. And we all know that games have been the major adopter of new users to crypto. However, looking at the past experiment of integration of blockchain and games, we can see that this sort of first generation of games, of play to earn, they're called games, they mostly failed, at least in the eyes of the players. And that's all because they focused on the wrong incentives. They focused on bringing speculation and making players earn money and incentivizing players in this way, instead of focusing on what games should always have been about. So let's ask ourselves, why do we even play games? I know it sounds like a very basic question, but let's look at it in this way. A game is a way for us to have fun, to bring us entertainment, first of all. But that's not the only thing that we're getting out of playing games. We also get this feeling of gratification, the feeling that a game tells us, wow, you did a good job, you're amazing. And also the feeling of excellence, actually being good at something, being better at something than somebody else. And of course, sometimes we also can make money out of playing games, and it applies both to sports, esports, traditional games, video games, and so on. So we spend our time, our skills, and our money to play and to get those things out. And if you think about it, it's not really very different from like the football World Cup that's happening. I used to play football when I was a kid to have fun. I didn't make any money out of it, but they're playing in Qatar right now, and they're making money because they're good at it. And the same should always apply to games. They should always start with entertainment, actually being fun, and that should be the main purpose of gaming. And yeah, so play and earn, let's call them. Play should be the first component always. Should and can and will be fun. And let's try to find new ways to make them fun. And I think that when designing that first wave, first generation of crypto games, we've been really asking the wrong question. The question was how to integrate blockchain with games. And the question should always be how to actually make games better, how to make them more entertaining, more fun, instead of just integrating the technology for the sake of it. And so to answer that question, we have to dive a little back to video game monetization. I'll give you a brief crash course on how to monetize, how do we monetize in the gaming industry video games. It all started with arcade games, so like pinball machines in bars where you insert a coin and you play. It's called pay-per-play. Then with the technology, as the technology evolved, as we started to have consoles, PCs in our homes, then premium, the model premium came along, which basically stands for you purchase a game up front and then you can play how much you want. Then mobile, with again new technology of in-app purchases, of being able to play whenever you want, came the free-to-play model. Free-to-play basically being the model where you download the game for free, you can play, and once you're really happy with the game finds a way to monetize you as a player, either by in-app purchases or by showing some advertisements, for example. And then, again, when we're focusing on free-to-play, which is the latest video game monetization model, when we're designing, let's imagine we're designing a game. We're designing a free-to-play game. What are our main incentives as a developer? What do we need to focus on? Of course, this is a vast oversimplification. Books have been written about it, and the industry is still trying to figure all this out. And it's a especially what you have to know is that monetizing a free-to-play game is a very difficult topic. And as a developer, you need to focus basically on those three things, which is the cost per install. So how much does it cost you in advertising money to get a new user? Your retention, so how likely is it that your player is going to return to your game on the next day? and your average revenue per daily active user, so how much money you're actually making. And this incentivizes you to create those in-game stores that we all know and probably don't love so much. So how can we use blockchain? How can we use this technology to actually make it better? So let's imagine in your fighting game we're designing, we're creating. Let's imagine we want to sell this amazing sword and we want to sell it for $10. In a traditional way, if we're creating a mobile game, mobile free-to-play game, we would use this technology of in-app purchases. So players, if they want something, they can buy it in our in-game store. There's usually a 30% commission for the store. It's usually unlimited supply. We as developers want to sell as many of those swords as possible. But what's most important is from the perspective of the player, it's viewed by them as money that is actually spent and not recoverable. So there is no real ownership here. And if we were to design and develop the very same game with the same sword and sell it as an NFT, then bringing this concept of ownership that blockchain stands for, bringing this concept of ownership to our free-to-play game, then we can sell those same swords for the same price and allow players to actually own the items, allow them to resell them in the future, and it shifts the perspective from the player's perspective. If I were to pay for something in a free-to-play game and I knew I would be able to sell it later, then I would be vastly more likely to engage with that purchase. And it all applies to other players as well, of course. And looking at it from the perspective of a developer, it shifts your focus, your main incentive to monetize the game. It shifts your incentive from designing the best possible selling in-game store to making the items actually useful and making players want those items later in the future, making them with long-term utility so that the prices are kept up. And it's always a more fun way to design a game, actually focusing on long-term utility instead of focusing on designing best-selling stores. And that's just one use case, of course, of the blockchain, actually owning the items, selling them as, for example, as NFTs, as tokens, as assets on the blockchain. And actually, that's just, of course, the tip of the iceberg. You could imagine many more use cases of the blockchain in games, especially because game designers have been designing what they've been doing for the past 10 years or so in free-to-play games. They've been designing virtual economies to incentivize players, to monetize them, to make free-to-play games actually fun. And they've been doing that for 10 years. And what better technology is there to host those economies, to give them new possibilities, new features that they can use so that players feel more empowered to own the items and to make those economies actually more engaging. Yeah, and so free-to-play games will use the blockchain, and of course not all of them, but the blockchain gives the smart contracts, give the possibilities to create economies that are far more engaging, that are out of the box, players are able to interact with one another, and I can't wait to see what game designers come up with their new economies that use this technology. And that's it from me. If you had an idea, any kind of idea of a blockchain game that is blockchain-enabled, then there has never been a better time to do so. If you want to hit me up on Telegram, we've created a technology to make it super easy for game developers to onboard them into the world of crypto, to create games easily. So if you ever had any idea that you wanted to bring to life, there has never been a better time to do so. Thank you.